Okay, I need to let you know that you might see me do things really fast. I believe you already understand. So when I say a sequence, you already know that I'm going to drag and drop a sequence, but you might just see the sequence pop up on the screen. You don't have to worry about that. Follow the normal procedure by dragging your sequence, because I would be cutting some part of this video to make sure that video is short enough. Because I believe if you see a sequence flash on the screen, you should know that I got that sequence from the activity panel. Or if you see a log message, then you know I got it from the activity panel. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to hit new to create a workflow, and I hit sequence, and I'm going to give my sequence a name. I'm going to call it LoadQuizBucket because it's responsible for loading a quiz bucket. The quiz bucket is going to be loaded from the API, so I think I choose this name and it makes more sense. I'm going to hit create. And now remember the best practice. Always have a sequence and 2 log messages. So I'm going to have this. And if you look at this, I have already put in an annotation that describes what this workflow does. 2 log messages, best practice. Okay, the next thing I want to do is bring in the arguments or variables I feel I would need for now. So I head over to argument section and I create game requests as a dictionary of string. Make it an in argument, and I also create a variable called quiz bucket, and this is going to be out, and it's going to be of a type dictionary of integers. So I'm going to browse for types because I haven't used that type before, so it's going to be dictionary. So I'm going to go to system.collections.generic.dictionary, and it's going to be a dictionary of integer of string array. So I'm going to say array of string. I hit OK, and I hit OK here, and I'm good to go. Do not forget to hit Ctrl S to save. I go over to my variable and make sure I'm in the bounds of my sequence, and I create a variable called endpoint URL. Okay, take this down, Ctrl S to save.
Yeah!
Now, if you can recall in get player request workflow, the game requests was actually loaded here, and there were specific keys I told you guys to keep note of, because these keys actually hold values that we would need to call the API. For example, like number of questions, question category. You can expand on this to see that key. So expand on this. This is the keys I am referring to. And difficulty, the key is called difficulty. So we need these keys to pull the values from the dictionary. And essentially, these values would be passed into the API. So let's head back to LoadQuizBucket. We need to do that in a multiple assign. So you want to bring in a multiple assign. And let's start with the number of questions. So I'm going to create a variable to extract the value of the number of questions. So I'm going to say number of question. And for the value, I'm going to do this. I'm going to set this to the value. I hit save, Ctrl S to save. Click add, Ctrl K. I also need question category. So I create a variable question category. And for its value, I'm going to assign it to the value to this. I hit save, Ctrl S to save. I add. I create a variable difficulty. And for its value, I do this and I hit save, Ctrl S to save. So what I've done is that I've pulled all the values from the values I need to make the API call that exists in the game request. I have pulled them into variables in the LoadQuizBucket. Now I go grab my API endpoints, Ctrl C. I head back to my LoadQuizBucket and I add in the multiple assign and I expand on the value. Okay, what I want to do here is set the endpoints I want to set the endpoint to this. So I'm going to say string dot format. And I put this in quotes. Now I want to replace these things here to indexes. So there's going to be, the limit is going to be 0. You can see the way I put that in curly braces. And for the category, it's going to be 1. And for difficulty, this is going to be 3, because we have 3 items that needs to be replaced on the string. And I'm going to say replace them with the following indices from the array. So I'm going to expand on this. So if you can see what I've done, I'm saying, anywhere you see the limits, for the value of the limits in the API endpoint, I want to put the number of questions, the value of the number of questions there. And anywhere you see the category, for the value of the category in the API endpoint, I want to put in the question category variable there. And anywhere you see that of difficulty, I want to put in the difficulty variable there. So I'm going to hit save and we are good. Control S to save. The next thing you want to do is call your HTTP request. So you want to search for HTTP request, and then you want to drag this activity right below your multiple assign, because this is the activity that makes the API call. Just in case you can't see this activity, it means in your project, you do not have the UiPath.WebAPI.Activities installed. You need to go to manage packages, all packages, and you need to search for UiPath.WebAPI.Activities. And you need to search for this, find this activity, click on it, and automatically, if you don't have it installed, then you should be seeing an install button. So get it installed and save. And then you should be able to find this HTTP request activity in your activity panel. Now I'm going to click on configure, and for the endpoint, it's going to be the endpoint URL variable. Remember, I told you to take note of this in the video where we discussed the Trivia API. It's a get method and it returns a JSON. So you want to select a JSON and you want to click OK. I hit Ctrl S to save and we are good. Okay, one more thing. You want to go to the HTTP request activity here and go to properties, because we want to get what comes out of the HTTP request activity. So we are interested in the response content. So I'm going to create a variable here, Ctrl K, and it's going to be called response content. I hit enter and Ctrl S to save. Now in my variables, we should have response content. Good. So response content comes out of here and it's going to be a JSON text. Now, if you remember in the previous video when I talked about the response from the API, you can see that we discussed and we concluded that it is an array of quiz question objects. So this is indicating that it is an array of quiz questions object. So that means we need to deserialize the JSON. So we're going to deserialize the JSON as an array. So deserialize. So search for an activity called deserialize JSON. That's it. So deserialize JSON array. And you want to have this activity here. And you want to deserialize the JSON string. Remember, the JSON string is stored in response content. So response content. And you want to deserialize that into a variable, Ctrl K. You want to call this JSON array. Hit enter, Ctrl S to save. Now looking all good.